Hey everybody, and welcome to episode 126 of the Self-Publishing Roundtable, the podcast for indie authors by indie authors, where we discuss today's topics and issues that matter to the business of the self-published author. I am your host, Wade Finnegan, and with me this evening, as usual, is Erica Conroy.
Yay!
Hey.
Xavier Granville.
Yay!
Hello, Internet.
And Liam Kingman.
Yay!
Howdy.
Yes, and we all have decent internet connections. Speaking of decent internet connections, oh my gosh, it's Jason Whited back
Hey!
again.
I'm alive. I exist. I'm here.
Live in color and sound and everything. We didn't
Yes, sir.
scare him away last time. So if you happen to not catch that, Jason is an editor, has been for quite some time. He's been spent a lot of time in publishing, over
20 years.
Yeah. He's done a lot of newspaper and magazine work all across the country. He's also helped lots of writers. He's helped out our friends over on the SPP podcast and a lot of other authors as well. He also does some writing himself. So we brought him on to pick his brain about the art of editing and what indie authors should be looking for when looking for an editor. So, Jason, thank you for coming back and putting up with us again. We appreciate it.
Wade, thank you for giving me a second chance. I was in the dark ages in Northwest Florida where they don't even have internet yet or cell phones. So I'm really happy to be here.
Oh my God.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, man.
If anybody is watching on the YouTube feed, jump on over to selfpublishingroundtable.com. If you click on the link at the top of the page on this week's show, it'll take you to a nice little interaction chat, so you can watch live and have your questions answered on air. There's been a recent change, so hopefully you guys, if you're watching over YouTube or on Google+, hop on over to the website and leave your comments, and Jason will help answer your questions. Of course, we always appreciate all of our viewers and listeners, so when the show is over, to take a moment to leave us a review. Check us out on iTunes and Stitcher, and also check out our social media feeds. We do lots of new material on the website and the blog, so selfpublishingroundtable.com. When you get a moment, come on over there and interact with us and learn some things. So, yes. So,
Yeah,
Jason.
you can learn what Wade's favorite color is, even.
Ooh, really?
Chartreuse? No?
Inquiring minds really want to know that, I'm sure.
And the plot thickens.
Yeah, it's-
Aubergine. Aubergine.
I was going to go taupe.
I kind of lean in fuchsia, actually.
Of course you would. Of course you would.
Isn't
We
that the
also-
color of a mojito?
Yeah, a color of mojito. That's right, a color of mojito.
They should make a crayon of that mojito.
Whatever color beer is. Yeah.
We also might have a little surprise thing coming here up in a few minutes in the show. So if stick around for that too. I like doing the teasers like they do on radio, right? Soon there'll be a surprise coming. So
Maybe.
Bernie
don't know.
Sanders. No.
maybe. So
Not
I guess
a surprise when we've announced it, though.
Yeah.
Donald Trump will be on the show
It's a
later on.
tease.
ladies
There's
and
a
gentlemen.
surprise
Donald Trump
coming.
will be here.
Donald Trump, the one and only.
Wade's seducing the audience.
Oh. Okay. I gotta go.
Not doing a very good job.
Jason, it was nice talking to you.
I want to see
All
your dance. Wade, let me see your dance, baby.
All right, as the moderator, as Xavier's told me, I need to rein us back in. All right, let's go talk about editing.
You do that so well.
Thanks, X. So, Jason, when an indie author, I guess, or any author, but primarily indie author, is starting to look for an editor, what are some things you suggest they start to do to make that search?
Well, it's you really want someone who's a partner. Someone who let me start this way. You have spent months, you have spent years crafting this story, this novella, this novel, this collection of short stories. You've spent months and years bleeding onto a keyboard and absolutely pouring your heart and soul into this work. And what you want is someone who will work as hard as you have to edit it. Someone who will work as hard to edit it as you have worked writing it, correct? So What you want is a partner, someone who will absolutely get down in those weeds, and then below that, get down into the topsoil, get down into the roots of that story, to see how that piece is structured, to see how the characters work, to see how everything works or doesn't work, and someone who will absolutely work with you and communicate with you, and someone who will be a partner. There are a lot of good editors out there, but what I've seen is a lot of editors are just very cold. A number of authors who come to me after hiring previous people say, I got the edit back and there were no notes. They just kind of corrected my grammar, they corrected the structure of some paragraphs or some sentences, but they really didn't get down in there with me. They didn't really understand the soul. My point is, you want an editor who will try to what I call illuminate the soul of your piece, right? Illuminate what you're trying to do, what you're trying to accomplish. Whether it's sci-fi, fantasy, erotica, literary fiction, postmodernism, someone who will absolutely get down there into the weeds and under that topsoil with you, and dig around in there with you, and someone who will continually communicate with you about why this section works, why this section doesn't work, why this character doesn't sound real, why that character does, and who can explain to you the differences and how to not only fix the work that you're sending them to edit, but who can also give you tips for future works, right? What you want is a partner. I mean, everything in life is about relationships. You want someone who's a partner, who's a co-conspirator, if you will. That's my favorite term, a co-conspirator. Someone who knows what you're trying to say, what you're trying to do, and someone who loves you and gets you and appreciates you as an artist, as a person, who will talk to you on the phone, who will talk to you via email, who will talk to you via Skype, someone who will spend as many hours as are necessary to absolutely illuminate the soul of that piece. And I think Xavier can comment on that. He and I had a great relationship with his first book, Dinosaur Noir 1. So
Yeah,
I'd
definitely.
maybe turn it over to Xavier for a little bit of illumination on that. What do you think, Xavier?
Yeah, no, I agree completely with those points. And what really made my day when I was getting notes back with you would be just those tit for tat things where there would be a little comment in which you would very simply tell me what was wrong with the thing,
Right.
but also tell me exactly what was good about it,
Sure.
and then have a suggestion of how to change it. And those are that's a hard thing to do when you're trying to be critical of things.
Well, because working in manuscript, it's a degree. It's a system of nuances, right? You're dealing with nuances of maybe one sentence of dialogue, right, Xavier, or one sentence in a paragraph, and that can absolutely change the entire chapter. It can change the entire structure of the novel. You want someone who really gets you, all caps, underline, gets you as an artist, gets what you're trying to do, and understands where you're trying to go with this piece. Someone who appreciates you as an artist, and someone who values your art as much as you do, because you've spent years, not you, but metaphorically speaking, someone who has spent years working on this piece. You want an editor who is equally respectful of that piece, of your art, of your work.
Yeah,
And so many editors.
In my case, I needed someone who was just as crazy as me. So thank you.
Well, got it.
What was it saying? Jason
Jackpot,
had me there at hello, but
Mhm.
where do I, besides you, Jason? Where do I find such a guy or girl?
That's a really good question. I would suggest that you all of us have favorite writers, right? And all of us have favorite genres. I would pick someone whom I really respect, and when you read their book, you can tell it's really been professionally edited, and send them an email, send them a note, and say, hey, I really enjoy what you did. Who is your editor? Who is your partner? Who is your co-conspirator? Who do you rely on to really illuminate the soul of your book? And 99 times out of 100, they will absolutely write you back and tell you, who their editor is. So.
Yeah, absolutely, and you need to have that
word of mouth
partner in
is
crime.
so important.
Totally. And like what I was going to say also, there were so many times where just like a certain little line of dialogue that you would find funny, you would always comment on that. Just that line right there, that left me in stitches, or just bringing up, that line convinced me. Okay, now I know where you're going with this character. I
Exactly.
can tell that she's a sociopath now. Now I know.
I remember that note, and it's important for an editor to tell an author what works and what doesn't work. I mean, most editors will say, okay, this doesn't work. If they even give notes at all. A lot of editors don't even give notes; they just kind of correct your copy. But you want an editor who will take the time to engage with you, to talk with you on the phone, to email with you back and forth innumerable times. I can give you a great example. Sean Platt and I have exchanged thousands of emails over the years about this character, this scene, that scene. I give him innumerable notes on scenes, on dialogue, on character development, and we always go back and forth. And that is such a healthy relationship. You want someone who is absolutely under that topsoil, under the roots of that work that you're writing, that you're constructing. You want someone who's almost like a co-architect. I mean, the author is the end-all and be-all, but the most important decision you can ever make is an editor, someone who will absolutely get down there with you, understand what you're trying to do with this piece, what you're doing from scene to scene to scene, from paragraph to paragraph, and even from sentence to sentence. Someone you feel comfortable with, someone whom you can really call a friend and trust as a friend. And if you don't have that as your editor, you need to get a new editor. So, and I see that a lot because every week of the year, people come to me saying, I've spent $5,000 on 4 edits. They still don't get me. What can you do for me? And that's what I do. I mean, you absolutely have to understand the artist. You have to get to know them as a person. You have to get to know where they're coming from with that piece, or if it's series, with that series. And you have to actually get in there and dig it out and really get your hands dirty and feel it. Does that make sense, or is that too touchy-feely?
With that in mind, has there ever been a certain project where you've had that kind of difficulty getting into the trenches or getting behind a certain author's either perspective or content?
Yeah, I've done this for 20 years, right? So
Yes.
you can imagine I've handled thousands of authors across the world. I mean, my clients now span 10 countries across 4 continents, so I've got dozens and dozens of clients. There have been some times where someone just can't write, maybe 1 out of 1,000. But that's really rare, so I don't tend to focus on that. That's really the exception. Most people who will invest the time to write and put together a book, they're already there. They're already 75% there. They just need someone to help shepherd them across the finish line. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
I think it's also maybe like a little confidence too, right? I mean, I think what you're
because I mean, Wade, you mentioned I'm also a writer. I've also spent 20 years writing for Esquire, for the Associated Press. I'm also working right now on my own series of novels, and what we do is we spend all day in a darkened room, alone, trying to connect with the outside world. It's almost antithetical, but you need someone who understands where you're coming from, what you're trying to do, and where you want to go. And when you find that person, you'll feel that connection. You'll know. You'll absolutely know.
And you mentioned too that this the kind of off a subtopic, but the money situation. So a lot of indie authors really sweat over how much money to spend and feel and I'm very worried about like you mentioned wasting money. Gosh, I spent $5,000 for this edit and I got crap back. So, what would you say we could do, if anything, to kind of hedge those bets, and also what kind of budget?
There's a really easy way to. That's a great question, and thanks for asking that. And there's a really easy way to avoid that, and that's to contact the authors that you love, the writing that you love, and the books that you can tell were edited with care and with love and with attention. And ask them who their editors are and whom do they trust, whom do they rely on. And they'll tell you. I mean, 99 out of 100 authors will tell you whom they trust and whom they turn to. And and go from there. And Satan, oh, that's Dave.
Cthulhu. Cthulhu.
For
Dave.
non-viewing
Dave,
audience,
I've missed you so,
listeners,
my friend.
Dave
I love you.
Wright has entered the building. Hi,
Hello.
Dave.
Dave, is that a Playboy magazine in your? No, sorry.
No.
Absolutely not.
It's a play.
Playgirl. I'm sorry.
Yes. Get it right.
Thanks, Dave, for coming on, by the way.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for having me. I don't do nearly enough podcasts, so.
No,
You don't.
not nearly enough. So yeah, so we're trying to make it too dark too early.
When Dave told me to get a blue Yeti, I thought he wanted to molest me again.
No, that's not the brand
Is
of
this a
dildo
family
I'm
show?
suggesting.
No, it's not a family show.
The Manson family, maybe.
So, David, anytime you actually have questions, feel free to jump in. Just like always, we're not very.
Okay,
formal,
I
so.
have a question. I don't know if you've already answered it or not because I missed the beginning. It's a
What are you
serious
doing here?
question. People are laughing. Yes. What are we doing? What is the point of life, really?
Yes. How bleak can we get off the top?
I want to ask Jason what because he's edited fiction and nonfiction. So what are some of the big differences between fiction and nonfiction as far as editing is concerned?
Sure,
Not covered
great question, Dave.
That's why y'all brought me.
The main difference is tone, right? I mean, when you're editing a nonfiction book on, let's say, the ascendancy of the Iranian state, or the ascendancy of
Some light reading.
some light reading,
Obviously.
bedtime reading, toilet reading. My first book that I ever edited was an anthology of Chinese nonfiction, and it was about a series of commentaries on state power, and it's about tone. So you have to hold yourself true to the tone of the novel, to the subject matter of the novel, and that's really the main difference. I mean, in fiction, all rules are off, all bets are off, anything goes. But in nonfiction, it's a more serious enterprise, and I'm sure you, Dave, you and I have read enough of Chomsky to know that's obviously a big difference. But tone and subject matter are obviously two big differences from fiction to nonfiction. When you're dealing with nonfiction, you're obviously dealing in facts. You're obviously dealing in things you can quantify and can verify. In fiction, as in Yesterday Is Gone, you're dealing with completely a different realm, right? It's a realm of your creation. It's a world of your imagination. So that's the main difference. You have to make sure you have an editor who has a background in nonfiction. I would say investigative reporting, like I have for Esquire and the Associated Press. Someone like that who absolutely knows these issues, knows these facts, knows where to track them down if they don't know the facts or if they can't immediately put their hands on them. So tone and subject matter are obviously the two main differences between fiction and nonfiction.
And right now you're editing a lot of different writers.
Sure.
How do you keep all the voices distinct in your head when you're editing? Because even Sean and I write different than Sean and Johnny, and
Sure.
all the other people you're editing for. So
Sure.
how do you keep it all in your head, like the style and?
It's extremely easy. You make copious notes. You wouldn't believe the number of files. I have more files on you than the NSA.
I believe that actually.
No, seriously. You have, as an editor, if an editor is really worth his salt, you make notes on the tendencies of a writer, on the style of a writer, on the voice that the writer tends to prefer, on the way the writer constructs sentences and dialogue pieces, and then you go, before you start any piece, you go back through those notes. Let's say that I edited something for Dave in April, and then next Friday Dave sends me his next book. I will spend a full day going back through all the previous notes from Dave's previous novels and novellas and short stories, and I will make sure I have a completely refreshed idea of his sensibilities, of the way he handles character development, of the way he structures scenes, of the way he handles characters and dialogue, the way he puts sentences together. And if you don't have an editor who's doing that, then you got to get somebody else. I mean, I'm talking up editors, but it's just as much of an art to edit as it is to write. And if you don't have an editor who's an artist in that editing, then get somebody else. Someone who respects the work, who respects the artist. And again, Dave, I have so many notes on how you write stuff. I mean, I've known you for 11 years, so, you know. I already know your. I mean, I know your voice as well as mine, but yeah, for my other clients, yeah, I have copious notes, many Google document files on how they use language. Go ahead, Erica.
Sorry about that.
You're champing at the bit. You're champing.
Yeah, just because you're talking about all the notes that you've kept with Dave and all the other authors. What mistakes is Dave still making?
I'm not going to get into that. I can't.
That's cool. I don't.
No. No.
He still says a
Dave
lot.
has his permission.
Just common mistakes over writers.
Let me just say.
Picking on
putting children in jeopardy. And...
Actually, Jason adds those if there aren't enough. Dave, in April's story, there were 3 children in jeopardy, and in this one, there's only 1. I think you are falling down on the job here. So.
And there was no penetration. Why?
Wow.
Wow. How about common mistakes?
Every client I hire signs a confidentiality agreement. I can't reveal any of that stuff. But
so what are common mistakes that you see from writers?
Oh my God, commas! My God,
I'm horrible with commas. I'll admit that to myself.
Farther and further. My God, farther and further. Then and then. If I had a gun, I'd shoot myself in the head. No, it's common to all writers. I'm exaggerating, but every writer has his own quirks or his own shortcomings. And English grammar, I have to say, in defense of all authors, English grammar is one of the most convoluted, confusing set of rules you can possibly imagine. I mean, I speak 3 languages. I'm absolutely, completely fluent in Russian. I studied that in college. I'm completely fluent in French. I've spent a number of years in France. And France has like 18 verb tenses, 16 verb tenses, whatever. English just surpasses every other language apart from Mandarin. I've never tried to learn Mandarin. English is the most absolutely complicated. You have a number of homophones, a number of homonyms.
It's a ridiculous language.
It's a fucking nightmare.
A lot of exceptions.
Hey, you watch it, you Canadian.
Hey.
Yeah. Oh, and that's
I'm
for
not your Canadian buddy.
For bonus points X, there's Canadian English, and then there's British English, and there's Australian English, and then
what's that all
New
about?
Zealander English. So you have to have style books for all of those.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really it's challenging.
With the editor I have, she offers Americanization. So I have to tell her at the beginning if I want it to be Americanized or not, and she says it doesn't take as long if I don't want it Americanized, if I want it straight Kiwi. But then she says she finds it really interesting to look up the words she doesn't understand, so now she wants to try all these different foods and stuff like that. So it's a learning experience for her as well.
So
have you found yourself learning something completely new because of what someone's written?
Every day is a learning experience. I have clients across 10 or 11 countries on 4 continents. Every day I learn something new. And the day you stop learning is the day you die. So authors can learn and editors can learn. And that's the kind of person you want on your team, working for you.
I don't think studying the Canadian English would get you that far. I think you'd find poutine and then just, stop.
Well, I was shocked back in 2001 when I first learned the word toque, so that kind of threw me for a loop.
Well, you don't know a toque there, bud?
Well, I do now.
I know.
It's a hat. It's a hat. It's just a wool hat that you wear in winter. Just what you see.
I thought it was a drug reference. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So 11 months out of the year, is that what you're trying to say? You wear that one? They take it off for 1 month?
Yes, that's just it. It's like 30 days of night up in here.
We have a question from the site, Jason. Krishan asks, is it wise to have different editors for different series? Her editor is working on her major series, and I would like to develop another tone for my novella series in the same universe. She's asking.
I think if your different series have different tones and different voices, that's absolutely correct. If, however, you tend to write in the same voice and the same tone, same sort of perspective, then no, I'd stick with the same editor. So.
But having a genre-specific editor, somebody that's stronger in one genre than another, could be helpful, right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Cool.
What would you say your strongest genre is, Jason?
I like to think all of them. I mean, I've done this for 20 years.
He's so modest.
Yeah. I just
No,
care
come
too
on.
much.
I'm not,
That's
I'm
my
not
biggest
trying
fault.
to be like a, I'm not trying to be like no, seriously. You know, I've done this for so long, literally for 2 decades, you guys, 2 decades. So I've absolutely written and edited it all. So
What would you
I
say is
can
the most
absolutely
difficult?
erotica. Sex scenes are the worst. Not the worst, the hardest.
Without hesitation.
Because
Why?
so many people write sex wrong.
Bad.
Bad. Yeah, you said it. Bad.
Oh, and you're,
There's awards for that, though.
Yeah. Can I cuss on this podcast?
yes.
Yeah.
Fucking cock. I mean, come on. That's like it belongs in a penthouse forum. So, I mean, really. Erotica is the absolute hardest. Oh my god. And then I had an author from Romania, and he was trying to write in English, and it was in broken erotic English. You want cock? I mean, it was really hard. It was really difficult. We got through it, but it was boy, that was a long haul.
But it
a
was
9-inch
hot.
haul, if you will, Dave.
Did you have a cigarette afterwards?
I did after every chapter.
Oh boy.
Oh boy. Hey, Jason, what's your take on beta readers? I know a lot of indie authors use them quite extensively.
I think they're fantastic. I think they can oftentimes catch something that editors don't. Editors can be so involved in the manuscript, in the notions of voice and tone and structure, they can miss certain things. They can miss very basic things. And beta readers are an absolutely indispensable resource. So engage them when you can, hire them when you can, use them at every chance. And I think Dave would back me up on that. Dave, your thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. And we work so fast, and we finish right before deadlines, and we don't usually use beta readers. Sean and I serve as each other's beta readers, really. But I agree because as a writer, I know that I'm blind to things.
That's
because
right.
I just spent so much time with it, and I imagine an editor can also develop that blindness over time.
Absolutely.
Being in the same story for too long. So I think every set of eyes, because I see it with big publications as well. I mean, any book you pick up, you're going to find some errors. Somebody somewhere dropped the ball. But the more eyes you have on it, you're more likely to catch that.
I think in defense of editors, it's not dropping the ball. Like for example, I bought like the latest Umberto Eco novel. Umberto Eco is an internationally known
A little indie
novelist.
author.
Yeah, a little indie author. little place called Italy. I found 6 typos in that novel, and goddamn well, that sucker went through 7 editors, 7 corporate editors over 9 months, and it's just the nature of reading and the nature of editing. Something will always slip through, always, always, always. So beta readers are an absolutely indispensable resource.
Nice. Okay, that's good. We'll segue a little bit away from the editing side of it, though. We talk more about the writing side of it. What do you think about pantsing versus outlining versus what have you seen working best when a writer turns in a manuscript to you, and kind of segue that how do we know as writers when a manuscript is ready to turn into you?
Well, why don't we go to Dave on the difference between pantsing and planning? I mean, I've edited. I will say first of all, I've seen great. I have a client in London right now who is a total pantser, and her work is absolutely stellar, absolutely every time. And then I have a planner in South America, and that requires a lot of work. So those things aren't mutually exclusive. I mean, it really depends on the author. It really depends on the amount of time they spend on it. But I'd be really curious as to what Dave says, because he has more insight on this than I do. Dave, what do you think, man?
What was the question again specifically? No, I was listening, but
well, okay. So pantsing versus plotting. What do you think produces maybe a better end result? I guess is the kind of the question. And then, how do we know when it is ready to turn into Jason? Like, how many times you go through it before you give it to your editor or something like that.
Right. Okay. So, well, for me, I think I'm more pantser than plotter. I plot out a lot of stuff, but I like a lot of wiggle room. And for me, that's the best balance. But some people are very, they're very much pantser or very much a plotter, and they're going to stick to what I think what works best for you is what works. As far as when to turn it into your editor, that depends what kind of edit you're getting. If you're getting a developmental edit and you want somebody early on to take a look at it, then that's great. Typically, we don't do too much early on with that because, like I said, Sean and I kind of work together on that. But I would definitely, if I was on my own, I definitely want an outside perspective on whether or not I'm good going forward. But you don't want to waste your editor's time. You don't want to pass them something that's half-assed and it might not be anything worthwhile. So you want to feel confident enough that this is a story that I would like to share with somebody and get there. When you're pretty close to done, at least I feel anyway.
Okay. Would you agree with that, Jason?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you a great thing to do is to send your manuscript to people you trust, friends or colleagues. Let them look it over. People that you can really rely on for an honest opinion, and send it to them. Let them look at it. Let them read it, and then let them give you notes. And you can't have any pride in ownership. You have to absolutely take everything they say into account.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. There's no doubt about that.
And you should also direct people what you're looking for.
You don't want to give your editor something that there are no periods and no capitalization. I mean that's obvious. But when you've spent a reasonable amount of time and you've self-edited enough, and then you send it to people that you trust, they'll give you an honest opinion. And if you trust these people and if you trust their opinions, and then you take all that advice back in, and then you revise it one last time, then I think you're probably pretty safe to send it off to an editor, right?
So, yeah, I have a question for you. What do you do when you have somebody that they're just not ready for prime time?
Yeah, and I send it back. I said I'm not going to charge you for this. I've looked at your 80,000 word manuscript. You're not ready. You need to submit about another month on this, or 2 weeks, or whatever the case may be. Your characters aren't developed. Your dialogue doesn't sound real. Just take this back, spend a couple months on it, and then, when you're ready, send it back, and then I'll charge you. Then we'll really look at it.
How do you determine, like, because I know, like,
well, how do you determine? It's the same question.
Well, no.
How does the Supreme Court know what pornography is? You know it when you see it. If it's bad writing, you know when you see it.
No, not that. Wait for the question to be finished, motherfucker.
we used to have these arguments in the newsroom 10 years ago.
How do you determine how to deal with somebody that might not be ready for criticism? How do you help them? Because early on when I was drawing, I didn't know I was that bad. And if someone told me early on, I might have stopped drawing. And the same thing with writing. So how do you determine what somebody needs and how to get them to the next level without just destroying them ahead of time?
Oh, listen, if you, I'm talking to all the authors out there who might be listening. If you have an editor who absolutely just shreds you and completely denigrates you and minimizes everything you're trying to achieve, that's not your editor. That's not the person you want. You want someone who gives you constructive criticism, who absolutely goes through the structure of the novel, who goes through your character development, who goes through your dialogue manipulation and development, and who will give you real constructive notes. One of my favorite authors is Michael Chabon, the author of Wonder Boys and Cavalier and Clay. And he says that those who are ready, you have to encourage them, and those who are not, I'm paraphrasing, but those who are not ready, you also have to encourage them, because that's the only way they're going to get where they're going. So you absolutely have to give constructive criticism about what doesn't work in a scene, or what doesn't work in a novel, or if the entire structure of a novel doesn't work. You have to be honest with that author and tell them what works, what doesn't, what's funny, what's not, what's sad, what's not. It really depends on the genre that you're editing in. But you absolutely have to be honest with that person. And so many editors will just correct the copy, and that's it. That's why I go back to what I said earlier.
I've dealt with editors before that would just say, "Oh yeah, that's great," and even like high-end editors that would say that.
They have to tell you why it's great. They have to tell you why it's great or why it works, right, Dave? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Why it works. or why it doesn't work. And so many editors will just correct your copy or give you very minimal sidebar notes. That's what I go back to what I said earlier at the start of this podcast. You have to have somebody who gets down into the reeds, into the roots, under the topsoil, into the structure of your novella, your novel, your short story collection, and tells you why it works, why it doesn't work, what's funny, what's sad, what works, what doesn't work. You have to have a co-conspirator, a co-partner.
Okay, and for people that either can't afford an editor, although I think that's a disaster, or somebody that if somebody really wants to edit a lot themselves before they give it to an editor, what are some tips of self-editing? How people can figure out what's bad on their own?
The main thing is just basic grammatical mistakes. Really, I mean, most of the time as an editor, I spend correcting, adverbs or farther, further, not putting quotation marks in the right spot. Commas are a big thing. Semicolons. It's just you have to have a knowledge of the basic construction of English. You have to have a really decent handle on that. If you're just flying blind and you've never taken an English class and you're just putting something out there, it's not going to be ready. You have to really take. This is your world. This is your life. This is what you're pouring your heart and soul into. So not only do you have to pour your heart and soul into the writing of the novel, it's my view that you have to, maybe my limited view, that you also have to take time and understand the structure of your own language and how things are put together and how sentences should be put together and how punctuation works. And it doesn't take that time. I mean, there are a number of community college classes you can take, maybe $100. I mean, really, that's a small investment if you're writing your magnus opum, right? I mean, it's really going to pay off in the end. You have to put the time in not only to the construction of your art, but the knowledge of the basis of your art. I mean, a painter wouldn't just take 5 gallons of paint and put something on a canvas. If someone wanted to be a painter,
unless
they
you're
would understand how. Well, that's an exception, but they would. Yeah, good point. They would understand how colors meld together, how they play off each other, how shadows work. They would spend 2 or 3 months learning that. And so many people think, oh, I can be a writer, and so they just kind of vomit something onto a page.
I read a book once.
Yeah, I read a book once. I can do this. It doesn't.
What
Never
was it, Tom Sawyer in high school?
Never works. Yeah. Let's not touch that with a 10-foot cattle prod.
A little racist. I agree.
What's your stance on said versus yelled, questioned? The dialogue issue always seems to come up quite a bit.
Yeah, said is grammarians from Harvard to Oxford are still in heated contention about this. I really don't care what the verb is. I think the more important aspect is the punctuation. So let's say that, get the fuck off me, Wade yelled. There should be an exclamation point. And so many people don't do that. They use commas or they use periods or semicolons. I think the punctuation helps to drive the tone and the pacing of a sentence of dialogue, of a swatch of dialogue. That argument has been going on since Shakespeare, Wade. It really has, for about 400 or 500 years, and it will continue to go on long after you and I are in the ground. There's really no easy answer to that. It really depends on the author's tastes. I mean, Thomas Pynchon will use a number of different verbs: said, yelled, adjured, chastised, and then someone like Cormac McCarthy, who's one of the greatest living authors in the English language, won't even use them at all. Never uses them.
Yeah.
So,
right. He just jumps back and forth. Yeah.
Yeah, it really depends on the piece. It depends on the piece, depends on the author, and it depends on how those words are used or are not used in the context of the entire piece.
Well, look at Chuck Palahniuk. He has crazy prose, and that always.
And it works. It works.
And it always depends on the project.
Right.
Certain ones will be much more literate focused, whereas someone will be super postmodern and very contemporary.
Sure. It depends.
Okay. You heard it here. It depends.
No, really. I mean, the great thing about English is there are no hard. I mean, there are hard and fast rules about periods and capitalization, but even well, maybe even not, because Cormac McCarthy just completely jettisons those, and so did a number of authors. So it really depends. You know what it is? It's what you can get away with. That's the real answer. It's what you can get away with within the context of that novel, of that novella. If it makes sense within the context, go for it. The great thing about fiction, there absolutely are no rules. I mean, the Chicago Manual style, they like to set themselves up these ivory tower based angels that sort of dictate what we do and what we can't do. But the truth of the matter is that whatever you can get away with is what you can get away with.
Can you tell a good story? That's the big question.
Yeah. Can you? Does the story matter? Does
the
it?
better
Does
writer
it
you are, the more you'll get
affect
away with.
Does it
Would
make
you
you
be
cry?
useless
Does it
around a
scare you?
campfire?
Already. Yeah, maybe.
Have you played Dungeons and Dragons ever?
Go ahead, X. Go ahead.
I was just gonna ask for this one question here. But I think both you guys, Dave and Jason, can chime in on this because I think it could be good on both sides of the spectrum. Jason, what do you think about writer's block and how you would recommend writers deal with that? And Dave, what do you think about writer's block and how do you think people should deal with that?
Okay. Should I do it first, Dave, or you want to?
Sure, go ahead.
I don't think it exists. It doesn't exist. It's a mental it's a mental farce. It's a mental construct.
Mm-hmm.
I think often it's an excuse. I deal with a lot of writers who will say they'll have a manuscript to me by say February 21st, and they come back, oh, it's writer's block. It's bullshit. It doesn't exist.
It's life.
Get out of your house, walk around, walk your dog, jerk off. Drink a bottle of vodka. Do anything. Drink a bottle of vodka
while walking your dog.
Yeah, not necessarily in that order, folks. Feel free to mix it up.
What I'm giving is an array of options, and Dave has embraced all of them.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Simultaneously.
No, seriously. Just go shopping. Go buy groceries. Do something. Go to the park. Go talk to your neighbor. There is no such thing as writer's block. Writer's block is only fear. It's just fear. You have to trust yourself as a writer. You absolutely have to trust in what you're doing, that what you think is right. And I just don't believe. I've never experienced it in my life. I don't think it exists. I think it's an excuse from weaker writers who really either don't want to write and want to talk about being a writer instead of writing, or they don't know what they want to write in the first place. Dave, lay into me.
No, I agree. I've never had writer's block where I couldn't come up with something. I've had times where I didn't know how to write something. I needed to work my way around something.
Sure,
I needed to figure something out.
That's how did you get past that? You just started putting stuff out on the page, right? And then it happened.
Actually, the whole beats thing that we do at Sterling and Stone is something I really got from working at the newspaper. When I didn't know something, a lot of times we would do stories piecemeal. We would do stories piecemeal because we hadn't talked to everybody. We didn't know the full story yet. So we'd write what we knew. So we'd start what we knew, and then we'd write like little beats to placeholders, really, of what we thought we might know, and then we'd get the information and finish it. And that's kind of what I do with stories when I don't know where to go. Like if I'm in a scene and I don't know how to get person from point A to point B in a way that really makes sense for the story, I put it aside, come back to it. And then I go walk and jerk off and
rinse and repeat.
Kill a homeless person.
Yeah, well, if they're watching me jerking off in front of my dog, I don't need witnesses. I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
Only at the park.
So, Dave, you're not a linear writer per se. Then, do you jump around in the story when you write?
I try to do linear. I need to know what's going to happen in a linear fashion, but sometimes I have to just put a placeholder there and come back. I used to write a little more all over the place, but when I did that, it really wasn't working for me because I would tend to never go back to the beginning and flesh it out. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I find that sometimes that if you are having difficulty on one end of a project, it's so much easier rather than not writing to just go write something else. 2,000 words lost on one project is 2,000 gained on another.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah.
I like that point. Yeah.
But I've never not had ideas. I
can't even be a wizard, a detective. So listen to this man. Listen to this man. If anyone's going to get a writer's block, it's X, right? I mean, come on. That's one of the hardest novels to write, I can imagine.
Wizard detectives. It's complicated.
To say the least.
I can't even say it without laughing. Yeah, well, it will be interesting now that I've quit smoking to go back and start writing things for Rick Trance McCoy, who is smoking probably about 5 cigarettes every scene.
You think you might have the urge?
I might. Who knows? Maybe the 6 months off the wagon will be a quick call back. Who knows?
You could substitute nicotine for weed. I mean, that might help. I don't know.
I don't know what that's about. I've never heard of
substitute. You can use them at the same time.
Never heard of such a thing.
Sure.
We don't have any of that up here in Canada.
Oh no, of course not.
No, British Columbia, it doesn't exist.
No, I've never been there.
Maybe going back to a little more practical terms, I don't know if we actually kind of nail this down. What would you suggest, especially a beginning author, I guess, that has a tight budget, set aside for editing?
Well, that's a really good question. I mean, editing is one of the greatest expenses, and Dave can jump in on this. Editing is one of the greatest and most important expenses that you can outlay for your project. I don't think you can avoid it. If you find an editor you like, and if those rates are really high, and if that editor is a human fucking being, he or she will work with you. I can't tell you the number of clients I've had in, South America or Canada or, Europe who just can't afford my rates, but they'll send me, a 15,000 word sample, and I'll look at this and I'll read it and I'll think, God, this is great, but they really need an editor. And so I'll work with those people. So that really goes back to the first point that I made, 45 minutes ago. You want a co-conspirator. You want someone you trust. You want someone who will absolutely work with you and meet you where you are. And if you find a great, world-class editor and their rates are just astronomically high, but if they'll work with you, that means the world. That means they're a real person. It means they're not just interested in the paycheck. They're interested in the art. They're interested in the enterprise of helping authors and helping people move forward and helping people achieve their dreams. And I've cut my rates a number of times, like more times than I can remember. I mean, most of my clients pay the full rate, obviously, but so often I've met people where they are, and if they had to pay me over 6 months, that's fine. What I'm saying is you want an editor who's a human being, who believes in what you're doing, who reads your work, who believes in you, who's going to be a co-conspirator, a co-worker, a co-laborer with you. If you meet somebody who is just cold and icy and just won't meet you on any level, that's not the editor you want.
But at the same time, if I was an editor...
I mean, we still have to get paid. We still have to pay our bills. I'm not saying that Dave, I'm not saying I give away for charity, and I'm not saying I do this a lot, but there are times that I meet a really gifted writer who just can't pay me the full fee up front, right? And so once or twice a year, I'll meet that person halfway. They'll pay me over 6 months. So because I believe in indie authors, I believe in self-publishing, I believe in fighting against the big five publishing houses. Their fucking stranglehold in the publishing industry has helped decimate, I think, the quality of contemporary North American literature. And so on occasion, I will make those allowances. Not every week and not every month and maybe just a few times a year. But again, it's a case-by-case basis. I don't think it's a really fair question, but on occasion I'll do that.
Are you
What do you
saying
thought,
that?
Dave?
Are you saying that 50 Shades of Grey is not the greatest book in the past 20 years?
I ran out of
It's
toilet
not from
paper.
North
and
America.
those pages were really, really tender and soft. So I really love that book.
You know, you can get Donald Trump toilet paper too now.
Yeah, that book was good too.
Does it have his face on it?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, okay, that's the only type that I would like.
But I'd be worried about little black smears on your ass, though. I mean, you don't know how cheap the ink printing would be.
Those leaves might bite back.
Build a wall around Canada.
And it's got
Like
hair
this.
on it.
Yeah, oh no.
Orange hair.
Yeah, no, that's his face. Orange face. I don't know.
I guess the
what-
larger, going back to this question, the larger answer is you have to have a certain amount of money if you want a professional, competent edit, right? But if you're 20% short, that's really where I'm coming. If you're 20% short, and if you send an editor a sample, and if that person reads 10,000 of your words over a weekend and really kind of digs where you're coming from, and if that person is willing to work with you, then you got somebody special. It's almost never going to happen, so don't count on it. I mean, just count on saving up that money, whether you're working in, retail or medicine or wherever you're working. You've got to save up that money, but occasionally it does happen, and occasionally I do that for clients. Maybe twice, two, 3 times a year, but it has to be a really fucking gifted. I mean, someone who's really rocking my world.
So now you're gonna get people emailing you. Hey, can I get a discount?
Yeah,
no, sorry, you suck. You're not quite that.
20%.
That's why I'm qualifying it. No,
I'm a rock your world though.
No, listen. I'm as much of a businessman as anybody else, but I still have a heart, and I still believe in art.
No, you don't.
In the power of art. Yeah. Oh, fuck you.
That's you, Dave.
I still believe in the power of art to change the world. So yeah.
Dave doesn't believe in art.
Wait, who are we talking to again? No. You think I'm dark? Where do you think I learned it from?
Oh no! Oh, don't even go there.
I was a fresh, naive. I was a naive, happy person when I started at the newspaper, and Jason molded me into the Dark Lord.
I found Dave. He was a sophomore at a Christian college. He was studying for the priesthood.
And I sang in a gospel choir.
Really? He did, and a lovely voice and a lovely throat.
But Jason could just sense the dark side in you. He could sense it.
I was under the tutelage of one Benny Hinn, and I was really going to.
That explains your penchant for white suits. Okay, now I get it. And pompadour hairstyles.
You know it.
Nice. Ice, baby.
By the way, did everybody know that Ted Cruz's father is in business with Benny Hinn? I'll throw that out there. That's my investigative reporter background coming out. Sorry.
A little rainbow appears over your head. The more you know.
Exercise the demon. Anyway.
So Jason, what is it that you said that you're writing a series right now? What series are you writing, or what?
Yeah, I'm running a series to take down all the rotten fucks who run Vegas. I mean, I've been a investigative reporter here for 10 years. I'm changing all the names and changing all the circumstances, but I've absolutely operated. Obviously, as you guys know, I've written for a number of national publications. Vegas is a fucking cesspool, and the people who run it are criminals. And so I'm kind of writing a fictionalized account of that. And so it's going to be hard hitting, and I'm changing all the names, and I've already retained a lawyer, honestly. I really expect to be sued.
So for those of you that want to hire Jason, you should do so now before his book comes out.
So I can afford my legal bills.
Before the book comes out. How about before the hit goes out?
Yeah. Oh, no, trust me, they would have already killed me before, back when I was a reporter.
Yeah, but didn't you know the mafia's changed their rules? Now they're killing people with kindness.
Yeah, they send you cookies until you go into a diabetic coma.
Right.
Hey,
it's a series.
Pasta.
It's kind of a true crime series about Vegas and what really goes on here, and obviously the names and places are changed, but a lot of it's going to be based in fact. and a lot of it is based in 10 years of living as an investigator in the cesspool, the underbelly of Vegas.
So it's going to have a
be
real
awesome.
happy ending, you're saying?
Yeah, it's a family food. Yeah.
It ends with a rogue lasagna appearing at his doorstep.
It's going to make True Detective Season 1 feel like a Disney movie.
Well, Pixar called me
From
they
the
wanted to make a
60s.
family movie out of the whole thing. Pixar wants to make a family movie, so I'm really excited about that.
There you go.
Pixar with dildos and guns and blood, so let's see.
Oh, that sounds right up their alley.
Yeah, it's awesome.
The Incredibles.
Yeah, something like that. Incredible will play a part, I guarantee you. But I'm also
one
running
more serious
like
question for you, Jason.
Yeah, go ahead.
What kind of trends are you spotting? You are obviously got a pulse on the self-publishing
Sure.
arena, and so what do you see? And what do you think? How this is going to kind of play out here?
One of the greatest trends I see is the reascendancy of science fiction, and science fiction back in the 50s and 60s, I think helped lay the groundwork for the American success stories in the late 60s and 70s. And now with NASA on the reascendancy, you're seeing a lot of independent authors embrace science fiction, embrace what's possible with science, with technology, and that's a really a large number of books that I'm getting in the past few months, and it's really encouraging. I mean, as the nation goes, so goes the art, or maybe the converse is true. But I've always believed in the power of science fiction to change things, to inspire people. Arthur C. Clarke inspired kind of the satellite revolution, as you guys know. He also inspired a number of spacecraft developments. And I really see that happening now. And to me, it's very exciting. I've always been a big fan of science. I'm an English nerd, but I've always wanted to be a scientist. And I really see that a lot these days. Sci-fi is on the uptick, for sure.
Yeah, that tends to happen when people think the world's about to end.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for bringing us back down. That's awesome.
Get a ray of sunshine from Dave.
I know, Liam, you are sporting the NASA T-shirt.
Yes.
Any other questions from the panel, or anything I missed in the comments before we wrap up? We are getting close to top hour.
There was one that So, Jason, you've done a lot of editing for Sterling and Stone in all the different branches of the subsidiaries. Now that you've edited a large body of work working for one group, what changes? What has that 12-year relationship been like? You know, like how have you seen things change? How do you and your client grow with time? I guess.
I think the main way that an editor and a client grow is through communication. And Dave and I don't exchange so many emails, but Sean and I do. We've exchanged literally thousands of emails over the years, untold thousands. The main key to how a client grows, how a client develops, how an editor grows and develops alongside that client, right? Because it's a symbiotic relationship. As the writers grow, so does the editor, so does the editor's knowledge, so does the editor's concept of what those writers want to do and where they want to go. It's absolutely all about relationships and about communication. And we've had fights, and we've had, laugh sessions, and we've had every aspect of any human emotion you can have in an editor-client relationship. And it's been absolutely the most rewarding series of relationships with Sean Platt, David Wright, and Johnny B. Truitt in my entire life. And I thank all of them for it. I would not be half the editor if I didn't work for David Wright and Sean Platt and Johnny B. Truitt. It's a continuous, expansive, and expanding personal series of relationships and a series of understandings about where they're going with their art, where they want to go with their art, where they have been. I just feel I'm just like the luckiest editor on the planet to work for these three amazing, incredibly gifted artists. And I've known Dave longer than the rest, but these men are true artists in the true dictionary definition of the word. And I am just happy to be a small infinitesimal part of what they're doing.
Okay, well, I'm going to write that check out right now to you.
Yeah.
25 cents. Yeah, infinitesimal.
Oh,
I got a raise, 25 cents.
How many doll hairs was that?
No, I mean, I don't mean to. I'm not trying to bullshit. I mean, honestly, Dave will tell you I sling truth. I only speak truth, but it has been the most rewarding series of relationships in my life. And it's allowed me to expand my editing, as I said, across 10 or 11 countries on 4 continents. And now my clients number in the scores. It's been my privilege.
Heard of you, if not for Sean, Johnny, and Dave. So
and actually, when I had a great relationship, did we not? We had a great experience with you.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's ultimately you do need to find those people that are. And I knew immediately, even though Dinosaur Noir is not atypically anywhere near a comedy, it's most assuredly science fiction, alternate history, mystery.
Sure.
But I knew that I needed someone that at least could, someone who's also edited Unicorn Western.
Right. That goes back.
Clearly, he'll edit anything.
Yes, exactly. Clearly, he can take it.
Wait, to be fair, I only edited Unicorn Western for the first time last week. They had hired somebody else previously to me. So all those typos you see in the first versions, not my fucking fault. But they're all nailed down with spikes now. Believe it, Steve.
And I will say this. All my life I've been writing, and I thought that I would be eventually a writer, but I never would be if I had not worked with Jason, because I didn't know what I didn't know, and I learned that from Jason. He sat me down, and he told me what I was doing right, what I was doing wrong. He'd hit me sometimes, but
sure. Well, an editor can be pissy sometimes, but Dave is the most natural talent I've ever encountered. I met him in 2005 in an undisclosed location near Dick Cheney.
Redacted.
And, redacted. I knew from the first piece he turned in, this guy has the gift. And it just kind of blossomed from there, and I am just so thankful to be a part of it. Can I plug my website? Is that okay before we sign off, guys?
Of course.
Yeah.
It's jason-whited.com. That's JASON-WHITED, white with a D, jason-whited.com. So if you're struggling with the manuscript, if you're struggling with finding the right editor, go to that link, email me. I will help you in every way I can.
Awesome. That's great. Well, if anybody has anything else, I think we are, like I say, we are at the top of the hour. So is there any other last questions that I want to make sure to cut anybody off before?
Yeah, when is Dinosaur Noir gonna hit my inbox, man? I'm ready for it.
I'll be sending you at least a teaser on Saturday.
The first book was so great. I can't wait for book 2. I'm just teasing you, man.
Well, you'll definitely get something on Saturday. You're not going to get the whole thing for sure. It's not done.
Just teasing you, man.
Well, I just before we wrap up, I want to remind people we're still taking submissions for the anthology, the Flood, right? Is that right? Yeah. At selfpubrt@gmail. So make sure you send those in by the end of the month, or by the 31st of January. So hopefully to see some of those. And again, if you are listening on iTunes and such, check out the website. We're adding a lot of new content at selfpublishingroundtable.com. Pretty easy to remember, but got lots of new content, blog and such, and love to have you guys visit and come watch live once in a while too. It's kind of fun. You never know. Someone like Dave shows up, and you get to maybe talk to him or something. So,
well, if you're trying to get people to go to it, you don't say that.
Oh, that's right. Dave, though, thank you for popping in.
Come watch the show, and Dave will yell at you.
Dave will take all of your hope and squash it.
Jason, thank you so much for coming on tonight. It was just great.
Hey, Wade, Liam, X, Erica, Dave, thank you. I love you all. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to promote my craft and promote myself. And I'm just happy to be a part of the indie world and the self-publishing world. And in any small way I can help, I just am very thankful. Thank you all.
Oh, awesome. Very cool.
Thanks, man.
Thanks.
Xavier, you got anything left to say?
Adios, internet.